Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Of the Marysville City Council to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Belzak.
Here.
Councilmember Gilchrist.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bettacavoli.
Here.
And Mayor Branscombe.
Yes, ma'am, here. Everybody would please stand and join in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Presentation number 3, as noted on the agenda at at time of publication, has been moved to the discussion and action item portion of tonight's agenda, which will now reflect as item number 7 on the calendar.
Okay. Okay. So, and we have presentations. The Regional Waste Management Authority. Oh, Mr. City Attorney, I've neglected to ask. Do you have anything to report on our closed session?
Mr. Mayor, there is nothing to report out of closed session.
Thank you. Now we move to presentations. Mr. Schultz, please. And oh, that's not Mr. Schultz. Okay. Okay. Regional Waste Management Authority, Senate Bill 1383 update. Sir, would you please share? Please share your name and what this is all about.
Good evening, Council. My name is Nathan Archiga, and I'm representing the Regional Waste Management Authority on behalf of Mr. Schultz. Tonight, I'll be discussing the City of Marysville compliance with Senate Bill 1383 and what it entails. Next slide, please. So, Senate Bill 1383 is also known as the Short-Lived Climate Pollutants Law. Its goal is to reduce organic waste and rescue food waste by 20 and 25%, sorry, 20 and 25% by 2025. It also requires that businesses, residents, and multifamily properties separate organic materials and recyclable materials from their trash. This includes plant debris, food waste, and food sold products. An additional requirement is that businesses and commercial food generators donate all leftover or unsold food that would otherwise be disposed of by donating to a food recovery organization or service. Next. So who is responsible for this implementation? Well, we do have a franchise agreement with Recology, the hauler of Marysville, that allows them to collect and source the organic and solid waste. They are not responsible for the implementation of this new law. Recology does assist us in key areas such as outreach and education and tracking and reporting. However, this law is on the full responsibility of the jurisdictions alone. And as of January 2024, Cal Recycle can now implement jurisdictional fines from $500 to $10,000 a day. So today I'll be discussing with you our compliance and how we can avoid from those fines. So the pathway for compliance is actually broken down in a couple of categories. It's providing organic waste service collection service to all residents and businesses, edible food recovery, conducting education and outreach, procurement, and compliance and monitoring, which is an enforcement and record keeping. So let's break it down with our organic waste collection service. All residential customers in Marysville have organic waste collection services at their disposal. This includes a 3-bin system. It's usually black and gray for trash, green for organics, and blue for recycling. Service is also available for all businesses and multifamily units, and it's also required now by the state. Waivers are available upon request for these businesses in two types of categories. A de minimis waiver that is allowed for businesses that have a low amount of organic waste, and additionally a physical space waiver for customers that do not provide additional, do not have additional room for a third additional cart. Marysville is currently not compliant with the commercial side of this category, as there are few remaining businesses and multifamily dwellings are without organic services. Approximately 118 businesses and 25 multifamily dwellings do not have organic services in their residence. So how do we help with that? Insisting with compliance of organic waste services, waivers are available. The RWMA, the Regional Waste Management Authority, we have a process for issuing waivers, and it's done in a 4-step process. Entities who are interested must first complete and submit a waiver application to the RWMA. We then review the application by looking at their service levels and conducting a site visit to see if the applicant meets the conditions of the waiver. Our staff will then approve or deny the application and provide the applicant with the outcome. The result will be documented and recorded in a waiver log, which we provide to the state, CalRecycle, to show that we are in compliance. Currently, the RWMA has issued 215 waivers in the city of Marysville. The next step in the state's recording requirements is edible food recovery. Edible food recovery is a category that Marysville is also not compliant with at the moment. The RWMA is working diligently to establish an edible food recovery program to keep food out of landfills. To implement a successful program, we need to assess the capacity of the food bank, enhance our infrastructure if it's needed.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. You say Marysville
Yes.
is non-compliant.
Yes.
Now, Marysville does not dispose, the city of Marysville itself does not dispose of edible food. That's not in our throughput. So it's not Marysville, which you're, if I'm hearing correctly, it's businesses within Marysville?
Yes, correct.
What about residents?
Residents are compliant at the moment, as all residential customers should have an organics cart in their service.
And how's that measured?
It's measured with accounts number that we have from our hauler, Recology.
Okay, but Marysville, I think it's incorrect to say Marysville is non-compliant.
I understand that, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation, the state is putting the full responsibility on the jurisdiction itself to be responsible in all these categories.
Well, that's great, but how do we, that's well, the idea of us going out and policing trash cans and what people put in trash cans is absurd.
Exactly.
And so 1383 loses a little bit of my respect just from that point of view. But please continue. You're saying Marysville's responsible for how its residents and its businesses manage organic waste.
That's correct.
Okay, proceed.
Yes. So as I was mentioning, edible food recovery is a big portion of that, actually. And so instead of going into the trash, we're requiring businesses and generators to separate their food and provide it to a food recovery organization such as the food bank. These types of food generators are broken down into two categories, Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 are large grocery stores and wholesale food vendors that are 10,000 square feet or larger. Tier 2 include hotels, cafeterias, and restaurants and school districts. So how do we get in compliance for the jurisdiction to meet the edible food requirement needs? Next slide, please. So to establish compliance, include our partnership with the Yuba-Sutter Food Bank. So we have assisted them by using some grant funding to purchase a new collection truck. This collection truck is going out on routes and checking out all these businesses that have leftover food and providing it instead of going it into the trash. The RWMA and Recology are working together with the food bank to complete our annual inspection. That's another requirement of the new law. And we have recently secured additional grant funding to assist with the food bank with food tracking software so that make sure none of it's being disposed of improperly. There are currently 10 Tier 1 and Tier 2 generators in the city of Marysville, and we're working with the food bank to establish compliance with 1383 laws and requirements with those organizations. Thank you. The law also requires that the jurisdiction does education and outreach. And so the RWMA has actually been working on this diligently with the state. So education and outreach portion is something huge, and CalRecycle asks us to submit this data in all types of ways, from types of outreach, quantity, and what type of customer, whether it be commercial or residential. The RWMA has provided CalRecycle with all specific material to 1383 that we have already done. And you can see a couple of examples here, such as our brochures and our flyers. And we've even done radio and TV digital ads. For this category, we are compliant, or this jurisdiction is compliant. A big portion of the new law is recovered organic waste products. This is also known as ROWP. This is something that we're also working on as Marysville is currently non-compliant. Per the state law, the city needs to procure recovered organic waste products to meet a 255-ton goal set by the state. Some of the items that would help us get to this goal include compost, mulch, renewable energy, and electricity from a biomass conversion. However, we can meet this procurement goals by working with a provider that uses or gives away organic material on the behalf of the city. So let's go into how we can get into compliance with ROWP. The path to compliance there. There are steps that we are taking to be compliant with the requirement. We have partnered with a company called the Zero Footprint to meet our tonnage goals. Zero Footprint will help facilitate direct service provider agreements with farmers, landscapers, and waste haulers that will purchase material on behalf of the city. The Recology Austin facility will also offer a 10% discount to customers that purchase compost on behalf of the city as well. The RWMA and Recology are working together to establish a compost giveaway event program to assist meeting this annual goal as well.
Through the chair. Sir,
Yes.
going back to recovered organic waste products procurement, you're saying 255 tons.
Yes.
Is that statewide, citywide?
That is
jurisdiction-wide?
citywide, yes.
So the jurisdiction of the city of Marysville has to come up with 255 tons of organic waste.
Yes, and so I do work for the Regional Waste Management Authority, which includes multiple jurisdictions, and altogether we have about 15,000 tons that we have to procure. The city of Marysville specifically is actually 255 tons as given to us by the state.
That's the metrics they've created for us.
Yep.
This 250. So does it go beyond that? Like, let's say like fats, grease, things of that sort?
So for ROWP, no. This is specifically products that the city can be purchasing that they're already technically purchasing. So, for like your landscaping or anything like that,
Okay.
that we need to be. But for organic food, yes, this does include fats and greases as well.
It does.
Mhm.
How is that measured when certain businesses deal with bioorganic recovery companies?
Great question. Yes, so our hauler actually has a spreadsheet with all of their accounts that they have, and it shows each specific business that does handle what we call FOGs, fats, soils, and greases.
Okay.
And so that we can then get those reportings from our hauler and provide those to CalRecycle specifically.
So the business has to measure how much they send out and how much they purchase.
Our hauler actually measures it by the size of container that they're being serviced.
Your hauler, but if the
Mhm.
business doesn't work with your hauler and they work with a different business.
So Recology is the sole exclusive hauler provider for the city of Marysville.
I'm sorry, what?
We have a franchise agreement with Recology, which is the sole provider of the city of Marysville for.
What? It's not quite accurate, but we can talk about that later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So if we could go to the side of paper procurement, please. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
How many jurisdictions are in compliance?
In the state, actually, none are in compliance at the moment.
Well,
So-
what's that tell you?
Yes, I'm just here to share our findings with the city specifically.
Well, if nobody's in compliance, I'm not worried about getting picked on.
Yeah, exactly. And
But, I sniff out some rent seeking here by companies that can benefit from this.
Mhm.
And it's a noble goal. It's a noble goal. But Marysville will never have the resources to be able to manage compliance with something like this. And I doubt very few jurisdictions would. I mean, can you imagine the city of Los Angeles
Mhm.
having this obligation? Oh, we're going to go around and make sure everybody deals properly with their organic waste.
Mhm.
So I'm not surprised to learn nobody's in compliance. It is a noble goal.
Yes,
I'll grant you
exactly.
that.
And as you
And
mentioned,
so
the quote-
bringing attention to it is good, but please, with respect, don't expect us to drop everything and get all
No.
over this thing right
Yeah,
tomorrow,
yeah.
okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
Please continue.
Thank you. As mentioned, recovered organic waste products is something that we have to establish as continue purchasing as a city. And one of the big ones is paper procurement. So the law also requires us to buy recycled paper content as part of this. And the city of Marysville is in compliance with this. I reached out to a couple of representatives of Marysville, and a spreadsheet is in place to track all paper purchases. All the departments are assisting with the tracking and send their purchases to be compliant on a master list that we then provide to the state to show that we are compliant with buying recycled paper products. And this goes into all recycled paper products, such as printing paper, office supplies, and even janitorial paper products, such as the hand wipes you use. Compliance and enforcement is the big one, as you were mentioning. It's hard to say that we can track all these businesses and make sure that they're doing everything. However, we're actually working on a franchise amendment agreement with our hauler to make sure that we can get this established by using a monetary system that they would provide to us to do these reviews. And enforceable mechanisms is a big one. Having something in place in the city level that requires businesses to have organic services in place.
Excuse me for a second.
Yes.
One of the things being in compliance, the way of tracking it, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it just the fact of even having the cans?
Yes.
Right?
So-
Because at this point, everybody doesn't even have the cans,
Correct.
especially the businesses.
Mhm.
But that puts you in compliance, correct? Just having the can, nothing else.
So as I mentioned, there's many portions of compliance, but yes, that is the main one that the state is currently looking for. And so just having the can in place is part of the compliance. And then it's also contamination. As the mayor was mentioning, it's hard to, look into people's trash cans and see what they're throwing away. Yeah. Move on, next slide. Thank you. The final one is record keeping. This is the last requirement of this law, is that we record all these things and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. So the RWMA is doing record keeping for all 1383 materials. In March of last year, the state actually reached out to us to look at our implementation review process for this new law. We did pretty well, and they're actually currently evaluating what we submitted, and record keeping software is being evaluated by us so that we may make this system a little bit more efficient as well. And so for that reason, CalRecycle has told us that our record keeping process are in compliance. And so just in summary, as I mentioned, we're making significant strides to meet all of the requirements. We continue compliance reviews with CalRecycle. The Recology, Marysville, and RWMA are working together to achieve mandatory organics compliance with the food bank. We're using the food bank to audit and to do annual route reviews. The RWMA is fully ready to implement an edible food recovery program. And with our partnership at Zero Footprint, providing compost and mulch to residents and businesses on behalf of Marysville, we're almost sure we can reach our 255 tons goal that the state has put on us. While we're not fully compliant just yet, we're making significant efforts, and we're meeting monthly with CalRecycle to show that we are doing everything we can. And for that reason, I don't think any fines are coming our way. As I mentioned, we're on the top tier list of everybody else in the area. Thank you.
If I may ask you a question, sir.
Mhm.
Quick. So you're saying because most of the state is not compliant right now, are the fines going to trickle to RWMA, and do they trickle down from there, or are you asking us to create a structure there?
So the state is mostly not compliant yet, but however, us as the RWMA working with multiple jurisdictions, we work with Marysville, Yuba, et cetera, we are in compliant compared to many other jurisdictions. For example, the city of Lincoln still doesn't even have a 3-bin system. They do not have organics. They do not have recycling. They have 1 bin. Everything goes in there. They take it to a facility, and that's where it's separated. But that's being so costly to them that they're going to have to switch over to the system very soon. So if fines do come, they won't come to us first, as we're doing way more efforts than other jurisdictions in the area.
So if fines do come, though, do they trickle down from there?
They will be trickling out to the jurisdiction specifically, yeah.
Jurisdiction, city of Marysville will then have to find the businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Now, again, it's a noble goal, but I noticed on that one slide, if we're over 10% contamination,
Yeah.
which is a strange term to use within trash.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, contamination, we're supposed to be levying fines. I would suggest feedback to your betters, your colleagues and what have you, that I think you could stand on one foot the rest of your life and still not see Marysville issue a fine for contamination? I mean, we're going to go around and look at everybody's trash can?
Oh, the fine specifically would come from the hauler.
From
As
who?
The hauler, Recology. So if somebody has contamination in their trash can, the fine will come specifically from the hauler.
So they're going to be looking individually at trash cans when they go by and pick them up.
They'll be doing audit route reviews, yes.
Okay, question. Sorry.
Watch out, everybody.
Yeah. They'll be letting everybody know ahead of time with a flyer and even a phone call with an automated message saying, this week during your collection service, you'll be receiving an audit review. So
Well, let me ask you a question that I've got one.
Mhm.
Back in the day, newspapers were recycled. Newspapers supposed to go in recycle.
yeah, they can still go in the recycling.
Way to go. Thank
There
you.
go. Yep. No,
Sir.
So having a business that does sell food out of its premise and so forth, I understand any extra food that is made is supposed to be set aside according to 1383 to go to the food banks and so forth. I don't have any extra food set aside, but I do have a lot of patrons that don't finish their food. I'm not having my employees at this particular juncture pick food out
no.
and put it into a separate bin,
Mhm.
go from there. But the hauler could interpret what they see, and then we could potentially receive a fine off that.
So as you mentioned, if somebody doesn't finish their food, it's actually a different category. It would go into like the waste, which is the organics cart, the green bin. You know, the cart that you usually put your grass in, now you can put food waste into that, such as any leftovers at the dinner table, napkins, and even greasy pizza boxes.
So inside of my establishment, I need to have 3 different trash cans, and I need to have my employees separate and kind of go from there.
Correct.
Yeah, and I can have it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To the chair. Just a couple questions for you. One, thanks for coming in here.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
sure you didn't
Yeah.
realize you were coming in front of the firing squad.
No, no problem. No problem.
We're here and you're here, so here we go.
Yeah.
First of all, I guess we've already got enough people rummaging through our trash
Yeah.
cans. We don't need ecology employees doing it as well. Curious about dump trailers and, you know, small dump trucks, et cetera, that are going in. They ask you where you're coming from. You tell them what city you're coming from. Does that go towards the count, or is it only what's being hauled in by Recology?
It's only what's being hauled in by our college.
So is there a way to get around that and find a loophole to be able to utilize the trash that's coming in from like landscape contractors, for example,
if they
to be
take it
able
to
to
a-
count that towards our Marysville count if it's
Yeah.
coming out of a Marysville location?
Yes, exactly. If it's coming out of a Marysville location and they take it to a Recology facility to be disposed of, it can count on our behalf.
Okay, and we can have confidence in that
Yes.
Recology will do that.
Yep.
Another question is are you familiar with the difference between a general city and a charter city?
Myself, no, I do not.
So there's this pretty significant difference between the two,
Mhm.
which means that in some state rules, laws, and mandates, general cities have to comply with certain areas. And in other particular categories, as a charter city, we can be exempt or in some cases move into a different category.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious if this is one of those categories that ought to be verified as to whether we'd have to comply with that or not, or move in line with that. It's probably not an answer in this meeting, but it's definitely something to take into account.
As far as I'm aware, I have read all the legislation, and it's all of California.
It's
The only
that
waiver.
doesn't mean it is, 'cause
Yes.
we get mandates that say all of California must,
Mhm.
but then being a charter,
Mhm.
sometimes we don't have to.
Understand.
So
Yeah.
they're crafty with their words. That's all the questions I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you.
We now have the first budget presentation for fiscal year 24-25. And again, this is the budget presentation for the upcoming fiscal year. It'll be a quick review. Jennifer's promised me that, and Ms. Jennifer Straczynski, our Chief Financial Officer, if you would please.
Okay, so good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I'm doing our first presentation for our proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. So I do want to state before we start, though, the numbers presented tonight, especially for next year's budget, still are subject to change through this meeting and other meetings with council and city manager. Numbers still could change for next year's budget as council wishes. So just quick presentation agenda. As you can read on here, we're going to go over a big picture, go over our general fund overviews, propose new expenses, what kind of street enterprise projects we have coming up, and what our next steps are. So overall, when we're looking at the big picture of the economy, is that with interest rates going up to curb inflation, that the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates, we went from around 0% to 5.5%. The reason why this is significant because they're helping to do that to curb CPI to actually keep our prices in check without going out of control. So that is impacting our local economy. If we're looking at CPI, we'll always look at the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward CPI, and it was up in February 24, around 2.4% of the following February prior to that. But the same time frame, if you go back another year, was 5.3%. So inflation has shifted a little bit down. And then again, overall, there is a shift in our consumer behavior because people are opting to buy more household items over expensive purchases. And this does come from HDL, our contractor we use. Next slide. Okay, so just so you know, some of our major changes that are coming up is sales tax. We are continuing with little or no growth, and that is due to, again, the change in how consumers are spending. We are looking at an increase in our UAL this year of around $168,000 from prior years. This is due to CalPERS not hitting their goals when it comes to the investment for pension opportunities. We want to let you know that insurance increases have gone up. We've listed them on here, what it's gone up. On average, it's about a 31% increase in our overall insurances, which is the equivalent of just about $300,000 this year. And those are ongoing expenses that we do not have control over and need to absorb into our ongoing funds. When talking about our budget, we do want to say the B Street property, which is in current progress right now, anything sold or any potential TOT tax is not included in these figures as it's still a pending process right now. And then just want to let you know, we've been talking about ARPA funds for the past few years, is that this is our last year to obligate our funds, which is basically going to an agreement or contract to be able to spend those funds. We still have about 1.6 million, which we'll be going over in future slides. So instead of going through every number on here, this is just a 5-year look of what our ongoing operational and revenue is, and that's your top 2 lines, and then your non-recurring. So for the first 3 dots, for the first 3 years on this line, our revenue's been fairly stable. Our expenses have been increasing because we've been having salary increases between 5 and 10% per year through labor negotiations. And then we look at our non-recurring revenues. These are mainly our grant funds that come in. So when we get a grant, it's normally an in and it's an out account. We did bring in some more revenue again due to ARPA. The biggest one, if we look at the 4th dot over that I do want to identify, is we do have a peak on the ongoing expense of the 6.28. That is mainly due because we did around $3.4 million of street projects in this current fiscal year using our reserve that came through Measure C. And then the numbers that we have on the far side, we'll actually be going through in following slides, so I won't go through those. But it just gives you a graphical representation of where our budget's been. Okay, so the big news everyone wants to see is where we're going with our numbers. So again, we're looking at a projected fund balance of around $7.3 million. And this is as of June 30th, 2024. Again, this is an unaudited projected number because we still have just over a month to go in this fiscal year. We're looking at for next year of our total revenue being around $15.5 million. Of that, 14.5 is ongoing revenue, and then our non-recurring revenue is just under $1 million. So we want to identify these 2 sources. Basically, our ongoing revenue would be grants, and then if we have some one-time costs that come through from reimbursements from D10. Sorry.
I think you meant our one-time revenue.
One-time revenue. I know. I said cost, and I caught myself there, right? So we are talking about our costs. So right below it is we're talking about our ongoing expenditures of being about $14.15 million, with our projected non-recurring expenses of 3.1. So again, this is our grants that are coming in of around just over $900,000. We're looking at expending the remaining $1.6 million of ARPA funding in this year. And then we have around $490,000 of one-time expenses, which in further slides, we will go through what those one-time expenditures are. So bottom line is we're looking at a projected deficit of $1.77 million. I really want to clarify though with this is if we take away our one-time costs and we're only looking at our operating ongoing cost, we actually have a surplus of around $334,000. So we are operating in surplus, but when we use our one-time funds, which are around $2.1 million of funds that we're proposing, that's why we're showing a projected deficit for next fiscal year. With that, we're looking at a projected ending fund balance at the end of next fiscal year, around 5.5 million, or an equivalent of 39.15% fund balance. So I do want to say with that though, with the fund balance, that to keep with the council's recommended at least 30% goal, we would want to keep a fund balance of $4,246,752, which again, this varies from year to year because it's based on our overall ongoing operating expenses. So we are still keeping well within goals set by council. Okay. So this one here is just a brief overview of where we were at mid-year budget and then where we're projecting to be at the end of the year. As we discussed during the mid-year budget, when it comes to sales tax and Measure C, which is our sales tax revenue, we did see some decreases this year, which we have been informed were coming due to, again, there was a softening of the economy. And also as our gas prices go down, which is great for our pocketbooks, it also brings down the amount coming in. When it comes to our other revenues that we thought were going to come in, we brought in everything we thought so, or are really close to it. The main difference is in the intergovernmental. These are grants. So if we haven't completed a portion of a grant, we just weren't reimbursed for it. Before we go to the next slide, I also want to state too, when you're looking at these graphs, if it's in the light color, that's ongoing expenses or ongoing revenue, depending on what slide we're on. And if there's a dark color above it, then that's a non-recurring. So it's just a way to visually see the distinction between the two. So next slide. So again, we just went through our general fund. Again, if you're looking at our total ongoing revenue, we predicted 14.7, we're bringing 14.69, so pretty much the same. Enterprise fund, we started an agreement with Recology for a leachate collection, which is why Recology or enterprise fund is up. Special revenue funds are things like our street fund, and then several grants that we have, especially police grants, and then our there's a selfie fund. Sorry, I forgot the acronym, but it's for police, our funds that come in that support our police department. So that's what falls under the special revenue funds. And then our capital projects are ongoing grant projects that we have, which again, at this time, we did not have a lot in this current fiscal year, but we have several more coming next year, which we'll go over in other slides. So this one is just a 3-year comparison. So we're looking what actually happened in 22-23, what we see happening this current fiscal year in the middle of 23-24, and then where we're projecting out for 24-25. Again, as we're talking about, our sales tax has gone up a little bit, which we are seeing a dip coming, or not a dip, we're actually staying a stable growth or a stable growth or little growth for future years, with all of the revenues increasing proportionately. The only main difference we want to see is under other revenues. You do see in the first year that there was a much larger revenue. That was due to our second amount of ARPA funds we received. And then the 2 following years after that are grants. So those are going to vary from year to year on the amounts. Next slide. Okay, so this one is just a comparison of our budgets for our departments. In general, when we're looking at fleet, public works, human resources, and admin, they were right on target. You will notice in the police department, we're projecting we're going to spend less. And this is just due to several vacancies that the police department has had between all levels, between mid-management and down to officers and dispatchers. So there is, even though our overtime is up, there is significant savings and ongoing salaries and the benefits that come with it. We do this because as we do our budget process, we budget that all positions are filled all year long. And then the main difference when you're looking under other departments is, again, we had originally said that we were going to do some more projects when it came to city facilities. Not all those were completed. So about 1.6 million will carry forward to next year, but it does include, again, that we did $3.4 million worth of street projects. With that, the city had committed $3.7 million in street projects. The projects actually came in under budget. And so that $300,000 left, we're still going to put into streets in this next year to help with future street projects. So we're still committing to the 3.7. It's just a portion that will be in next fiscal year. Go to the next. So the next is kind of the same concept. Is here's a 3-year summary. So you get to see where actual expenses are, what we projected, and that we're hoping to budget. And again, especially in all the departments, and especially the police department, it looks like when it's increasing, there's not necessarily a large increase in the police department budget. It's just because we're budgeting for full salaries. That's what a normal budget will look like. We just happen to have salary savings in this current fiscal year. So their ongoing expenses, again, are very, very steady from what we've done in prior years. It's purely if the the positions will be filled or not. All the other accounts are relatively stable throughout. Again, in HR, the reason it's gone up is because there is an increase in our unfunded liability and our workers' comp, which is also listed under this account. So go to our next. Okay, so that was just the brief overview of kind of where we were for this current fiscal year, and then how that's going to compare with the budget numbers that will be presented in the next 2 weeks. So just a very quick grant overview, because we do have several grants coming up, is that in this year, we have our zoning plan, so up to $65,000. With this, we are looking at finishing the zoning plan and then the specific plan right next to it, both in this fiscal year. So these 2 grants we've had for a few years should be finishing up. We have a Prop 68 grant, which will also be finishing up, and this is for our phase 2 of Gavin Park. And the Gavin Park project is, I think we're adding a slide. We're doing another playground project for the younger kids and adding some more bark and actually finishing the second phase of Gavin Park. And then we also have a grant from the Yuba Water Agency for Ellis Lake water quality. This is a $300,000 grant total, and we're looking to spend about $140,000 in next fiscal year. So we'll go to our next one. Again, a lot of grants. So Cal Recycle grant is to install fountains, refill stations throughout this city, and then also a lot more trash cans around the downtown area. So that's up to $223,000, no match. We have our mode shift grant, which about half it's going to be done in this year, the other half, and this is traffic calming measures on the 14th Street. Again, this is another no match grant. BRACMed Feather River Air Quality Management District. So we spent about this is for replacing pumps that we have, pumps and engines. We're spending around $160,000 in this fiscal year. This amount up here is to finish the project. So this is coming out of the street fund. And then the current match that we have of $131,000, we're actually working with BRACMed right now to actually have that amount reduced so our match goes down. We're in active negotiations with them. So that number should be dramatically reduced as we continue to work with them. Our SACOG Historical Downtown is the D Street grant to add some more walkability within D Street. So we're going to spend around $230,000. This is one of the ones that does have a match of up to $32,000 out of the general fund. And then again, we have a Green Bean Go grant, which is to do a storm drain and sewer analysis. So with that one, it's actually a $100,000 match, but because it's storm drains and it's sewer, the $100,000 match is going to come out of the enterprise fund. So they will have no impact on the general fund. Okay, we'll go to the next one. I promise this is our last grant. Again, we have a lot of them. So we have a Prop 64 grant, which is continuation of tobacco education. This is the grant that's that will be using the annex building as we repair it to continue this grant. This grant goes for 5 years. We have our ongoing permanent local housing authority grant, which is to help with our unhoused issues. We have Hands of Hope and Habitat for Humanity, who we partner with on this one. The Clean California grant is the $2.9 million grant that we just received. We're currently in preliminary stages for a plan, and we're expecting to spend around $300,000 of that next fiscal year. Again, no match. So with all that being said, we have around $924,000 of grant funding to be received in this next fiscal year. And then our general fund match will be around $12,500. Okay, so just quick overview. We do have our one-time cost. Again, we were talking about ARPA funds. The top two ones is to finish our deferred maintenance on city facilities and radio department coverage. With that, we're currently working on bids for HVAC, roofs, and windows at this current time. We need to have that money obligated by December 31st. When we say ongoing Ellis Lake consultants, we do have several grants for Ellis Lake. This is for consultants as like Dan Bergman to make sure that if projects come up that we continue to keep them going even if they're not covered under a grant. And then as we did with this current fiscal year, council had requested that we did an additional $25,000 to help with playground equipment replacement, and we would like to continue that for another year. Again, we're going to finish this should be the year that we finish the completion of our general plan, just about $180,000. So this will be the last time that the general plan will show up. We're working on finishing our Measure C renewal, and this is for the consultant we're working with and for educational materials to be distributed to the community. We do have a request for some servers for the city and the police department due to the fact that they've aged and they're actually not large enough to contain the programs that the city is currently working. So to keep our programs up and running as they should, we need to have some servers replaced. We are looking at doing a preliminary analysis to establish a train quiet zone so that we can see the feasibility of that to work towards future grants for that. And then the fire department, through the graciousness of D10, have some additional equipment, a Polaris and some gym equipment that we're purchasing. Those will be offset by D10 and purchased by them.
The able to establish a train quiet zone would be monumental for the city.
Mm-hmm.
I think those of us who've lived here a long time, I grew up here, kind of get used to it as part of the music of the day from the trains. But if the closer you live to the rail line, the more disturbing it is. And this is, I think, the very first initiative city's ever taken in the direction of seeing if we can get quiet zones, and particularly if we can get outside funding for establishing those quiet zones.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Okay. So again, we're looking about one-time expenses of about 1.6 in ARPA funds and then around 490,000. The other items we're bringing is 2 proposed changes to personnel. These come through the fact that we have 2 grants that are helping to offset additional staffing. So the first one is through our beverage container recycling grant, is they will pay up to just about $36,000 for 1 year for the operational cost of an additional maintenance worker to go through town, especially the D Street corridor where we're putting in all the new receptacles to make sure that they're emptied. So this position has a total roll-up cost of around $69,000. So the city is currently absorbing $33,000 into the budget of this current fiscal year if this is accepted, and then we would need to absorb the remaining $36,000 in future years to keep this position.
To the chair. If this is an appropriate time to ask, talking about proposed changes to personnel and kind of coming out of the grant review section of it, are we completely out of our SAFER grant? I think it was the SAFER grants for firefighters. Are we applying for those?
We are completely out. We have applied. The last round, we were not successful.
Okay.
I think they're kind of drying up. If Chief's nodding his head, yes. But we've fully funded those through our general fund at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so last fiscal year, the current fiscal year that we're in, we completely absorbed all three positions were 100% absorbed in the general fund. Another proud accomplishment here. And then the other one is a grant contract administrator. We're still working on the title and job description right now, but right now that would be partially funded through our Prop 64 grant. And this will be funded through April of 2028. So we're looking at about a total roll up for this position, as it would be a mid-management position, of around 134,000. So 78,000 of it's been absorbed in the general fund. 56,000 would come from a grant. So the other part, as we look into this for this position, as I'm actually finalizing a grant policy right now, is as we apply for grants or current grants, if there's an indirect cost that is allowable, we want to make sure that we go for anything that's an indirect to help offset this position. So we're hoping to have enough offsets to pretty much offset the entire amount of this position as we bring it forth. Okay. So this one, our street capital projects, there's no real amounts on it because we're still waiting. We have 2 CDBG projects, one that we applied for in 2020 that we were finally approved in 2024, and then another one that we brought to council at the end of last year that we've been approved for. So we're currently waiting for our agreements with HCD, Housing and Community Development, to be able to move forward with those projects. So one is a $2.9 million, and I want to look at my papers because I can never remember all the streets. So the 2.9, we're looking at it being south of East 16th between Ramirez and Buchanan down to East 12th or State Route 20. And there's no match on this one. So it's a pretty nice block in East Marysville. The other one that we're looking at, the one that's 3.3 million, would be south of East 17th from Sicard to Houston down to E12. And again, these are there's no grant, there's no match, but we're waiting on agreements. So when these come in, we'll bring them to council for bid. So when I said that we have this extra $300,000, if we need, potentially we would ask council, if we come up to a place where we're a little bit out of scope on this, we make sure we want to finish the entire project, we could use that as a supplement. We're not required, but we can make sure that the project is complete. The other one we have, and again, a lot of acronyms here, is the SACOG RPMM, which is the Regional Program Maintenance and Modernization. So basically that is to pave East 22nd Street all the way from Ramirez to State Route 20. So there is a $750,000 match for this. However, we have already paved from State Route 20 all the way to Chime. And because of that, we've actually already met our required match. So the remaining section from Chime to Ramirez would be covered by this grant. We're looking at this one coming in sometime at the beginning of next calendar year. And again, we'll bring this forth with contract bids when the time comes.
So pardon me, where did you get the $3.5 million number from?
Still my question.
Oh, 3.5? That's how much the SACOG would pay up to this grant. So it's a $4.25 million grant.
I'm on the SACOG board, and I think the entire amount for Yuba County, the range of 3.5 million. So we might want to adjust our, if it's the same piece, but I know it's maintenance and what road repair. It's hard to.
That's right. You said that we already met our match for the RPMM by doing that first section. Was that Measure C funds that did that?
That was Measure C funds that did do that, correct?
So we already met our match, Measure C. Thank you.
Yes, out of the general fund.
To answer your question, Mayor, the 3.5 was through a competitive grant, singularly. So it's probably a different pot of money than the 3.5.
Yeah. So say that came from several emails that I have between SACOG and Director Carraza. So, and then the last one that we have here is potential street would be paving 8th Street from 3rd to 10th Street. Again, these will all come to council with amounts and bids when those times come. We just wanted to let everybody know that there's several street projects coming that will be paid out of either Measure C, CDBG grants, or the street fund. So the next one. Again, this is our enterprise capital fund. We're still working on getting actual costs for these projects, but we want to let you know what's coming forth. We're going to be paying these through our sewer revenue bonds. This is the $3 million bond we received a few years ago that we have project funds. We've spent around $250,000, so we have $2.75 million left to spend. So we're looking at a large project on Aldridge Drive. Right now, we have a sewer main and backyards that is having issues. We'll leave with that, and we're moving it out into the street. That's going to be a very large project. We're still evaluating our lift stations to see what needs to happen. We need to replace the bar screen that's down by the force main pump to make sure that we don't actually clog anything as it's going down to Linda. So the current bar screen we have is at the point where it's needing to be replaced so that we don't plug our main line. Very, very important thing. And again, sewer analysis and master plan that we're working on. So these are all TBDs. As we work through them, they will come back to council. We want to let them know that these are the projects that are on our radar for this next fiscal year. So I'm not going to read all of these off to you, but again, as we plan for the future, these are some of the considerations that we're looking at as we look at our, the needs of the city. So we're going to keep on looking for additional revenue sources. We're going to keep monitoring our sales tax and where our cannabis is at. Look for opportunities to reduce our expenses and ways that we can improve the efficiencies within the city. So our next steps is we will be meeting with setting appointments with council over the next few weeks to start working, and so you guys can see all the numbers, go through them as we do every year. The very detailed list that will be coming. That list will be coming to council meeting June 4th. We will have our second workshop. It'll be a presentation, but not nearly as many slides. We'll narrow it down. We'll have hopefully our final budget workshop and then for recommendation for approval on June 18th. And if for some reason the budget does not pass, we set a tentative date of June 25th to pass the budget. So in that was how I consolidated our budget into 22 slides. So if you have any questions, I am available to answer them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was well done. Yeah, I think I'm in the right place here. We now move to the community and consent calendar. Beg your pardon? Item 3 got blacked out. It's going down in discussion calendar. Usually save me. Okay, we're on the same page. Individuals wishing to address the council concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. If you are here in person, the speaker's card from city clerk and you'll be recognized in order. If you're online, raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Need to remember that by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. And if you have documentation you want to share with the council, send it to the city clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, 95901. Madam Clerk, do we have any folks wishing to comment at this point?
We have, pardon me, we have quite a few, Mayor. Our first speaker will be Declan Peterson.
Oh, here we go. Come on up. Marysville Drakes.
Yeah, that would mean all 4 of you guys.
Yes, sir.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council for having us. We're really honored to represent Marysville and be here, and we appreciate you guys taking a few minutes of your time just to hear us out. And, we just want to thank you for everything that you've done for us and bringing baseball to Marysville for all of us. This is, a big part of our dream in life to play professional baseball. This is my second pro year playing with Marysville, my 4th overall, and where I'm from back in Illinois, I had a contract with the Chicago Cubs, but I had to turn it down in order to play for you, Mr. Mayor and City Council and all the beautiful people here in Marysville. So, but in all seriousness, thank you guys so much. We really, really appreciate it. We have the best field probably in the league at Bryant Field. So we hope to see you guys out there. Mr. Mayor, we look forward to seeing you throughout the first pitch tomorrow. And we got a great team this year. So I'm really excited. I really do think we have a shot to win a Pecos League championship. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Thomas.
First thing, please.
Yeah.
Someone told me I'm throwing out the first pitch. I haven't thrown a baseball in a couple of years. I asked these gentlemen if I could show up early and warm up, and they kindly agreed. Names and positions as we go through.
Yes,
please.
sir. Yes, my name is Declan Peterson. Like I said, this is my 4th overall pro year, 2nd year with Marysville. I'm an infielder, and I'm from Grays Lake, Illinois, about 40 hours away almost. So
good deal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Thomas Latham from Powhatan, Virginia, long ways away. Just honored to be here. Thankful for the opportunity to represent Marysville. Met lots of great people already here, from my host, Walt Brown, to people at the grocery store, the gym. Just really thankful to be here, and look forward to representing Marysville this summer. We hope to see you guys all out at the game. Hopefully enjoy some good baseball. Hey, and if you don't like baseball, it's okay. We got dollar beer night, so
Yeah.
come out for that if you don't like baseball.
And what position do you play?
Infielder.
Infield.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I'm Rodrigo Sanchez. I will be the starting pitcher tomorrow. I come from McAllen, Texas. That's the southern part of Texas. It was a long way to get here, but happy to be here. Second year in the Marysville, so thank you guys for having us for another year, and go Drakes. Quack, quack.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Dylan Stimson. This is my second year of professional baseball, my first year here in Marysville. A lot of people do not know what the heck we do. They don't really understand independent professional baseball, and I thought it was important to just kind of say what it is. We are not the New York Yankees. We are not the Boston Red Sox, but what we are still kind of kids with a dream. Yeah, so basically, it's just basically this league that gives us this opportunity to branch up into affiliated ball and become one day part of hopefully a major league program. So this has been a great opportunity through independent ball, and we couldn't thank everyone enough for what it's done. It really is a stepping stone for us, and this is a unique team. We don't have dreams to stay here and play for 10 years. We have hopes to move up the ladder and climb. So this has been a tremendous stepping stone, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done. Go Drakes, quack, quack.
Okay, and what position, sir?
I'm a right-handed pitcher coming in after this guy out.
Awesome.
Mr. Mayor, can I have the city council come up and take a picture with you guys all together?
I think we'd like to do that. Fun. Got any more like that?
We have a few. Our next speaker will be Edward, I believe, McCoy.
Welcome.
Hi, mine's not as happy as the baseball one. Okay. A county supervisor's office.
I can't hear you.
A county supervisor's office in another county called the police and told them I had a loaded gun. I'm ready to shoot cops. And the Marysville police showed up at my door. I wasn't there. I was at work. Didn't know this was going on. And is that legal for me to say, hey, he's got a loaded gun, send him over to his address to pull guns on him and possibly kill him? Is that legal?
Well, I don't.
Am I allowed
pardon me.
to call the cops and lie to them?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to answer it. Is that what you're telling?
Well, we're not supposed to engage in discussion with when it's not on the agenda. So forgive me for that. But we're listening. Okay, we're listening.
All right. Well, I want someone arrested. I tried making threats to have him deceased. You guys would be serious about putting me in jail. I want the same thing for me. You know, I'm tired of the death threats. It's been happening since 2007. I'm very frustrated. I got post-traumatic stress from it. Doctors. And you guys show up at my door, that's causing more problems. I got Department of Justice. I don't get in trouble. I don't have any criminal record. Why is this happening to me? It's not right. I'm being discriminated against because I have post-traumatic stress. You guys want to arrest the people? So I got post-traumatic stress. I want something done. Chief of Police needs to do something. The Marysville PD is where the crime happened. How can we solve this? You know, it's a crime. I'm tired of, you know, crying myself to sleep at night. It's deeper. I'm not going to get into all of it, but it ain't right.
We hear you.
Well, what are you there to do? How do you help people with post-traumatic stress who don't do nothing wrong, but are victims of crimes? I go to the victim of crimes. Their answer is have me arrested or give me pills. I don't want pills. I don't want to be arrested. I want the problem fixed.
Sir, our silence is not a sign of not caring. It's simply the fact that we cannot engage in conversations.
I can respect that.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not, you know, but.
And we respect you coming to the council.
I need something done about this.
You've been heard.
Okay. Well, have a nice day.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker will be Laura Rossellini.
That'll teach you.
She's got a list. Yeah, but it's not that long, really. So, can you hear me in this thing?
Please, yes.
Okay. We just wanted to kind of touch bases with you folks, you know, regarding, we're going to find this surprising, the lake. And there was a couple of things we want to discuss. And one is, we're all kind of going to take a little part of this. And who is it that speaks with the property manager on the restaurant parking lot? Who would we reach out to regarding that?
Again, we can't engage, but that's the man you want to talk to right there.
Dan, okay, I thought maybe that was, okay. Because we feel it's like the only real business that's on the lake that has a lot of traffic, and a lot of their trash from their parking lot comes onto our lake. And I reached out to the owner. He does not respond to my text. I did get his phone number. He has responded before. I've talked to him about it. Hey, you know, whatever. And he just does not respond back. So I'm talking to Dan later. And the other one I have to bring up is we drive by the lake at night and it's after 11 o'clock. Most of us know the lake closes at 11 and there's people out there. Some people are out in the gazebo taking a little siesta. And the stage behind the restaurant has a lot of people that have camped out there. And actually they were there for a couple of days until I called and said, hey, there's a camp. You can see the blue tarps. So you know that they're there and you can see them from the road. So what I'm curious about is Marysville Police Department. When you guys go around the lake, do they step out and take a look over by the stage or go over to the gazebo? Do they look or they just drive around? Okay.
Test. Yes, they do get out of their vehicles, but they do their sweeps for those people in the morning and have them move. So whatever you're seeing at nighttime, we don't have anybody at night doing that right now.
Okay. And I'm going to let Mr. Kenyon take over because he's going to do like a little side note on that. There's 3 of us here.
You can take that with you, or I know. Well, along with that, we were over there cleaning the lake the other day, and we came across the center area where you first pull into the gazebo, and you're finding condoms and all sorts of stuff, used condoms just all on there and whatnot. And you're picking it up, of course, not with these, but you're picking it up and you're disposing of it like you would. But we were walking the gazebo area, and we thought to ourselves, you know, there are some parks or cities that have rules with parks where they would close at sunset, where there's like a sunset rule, almost like, you know, the sun goes down, the park is closed, kind of a thing. And we thought that would be a good idea to bring to you for the possibility of the lake. In the summertime, the park will naturally be open later. In the winter, it will naturally close earlier. Nothing good happens in a park at night, right? So we thought that that would be a possibility. I don't know how enforceable that really truly is, but it's an idea. Because 11 o'clock at night, by that time, you think, you know, you're not going to have a lot of police presence, and that's no fault of their own. There's just scheduling things and more things that have priority. You know, during the winter hours, especially if the park is closing at around, you know, 5 or 6 because it's sundown, you would have that, still have bodies present. But I don't know what you guys think about that. I know you can't comment, but it's but it's an idea. It's an idea.
And is it
I don't think it's
time limit?
and right, and we're not trying to be, you know, like
It is on their City of Marysville.
not trying to be like horrible people with it. It's more like, you know, when you go out there, like few times that we've gone out there, you know, not to go into detail, but even this last couple of weeks, we've gone out to the gazebo and there is human feces all over the gazebo that we clean up off of it. And people are out there using that as a restroom on the gazebo itself. So that's where it gets a little tricky. So that's one of the points there. And the other one is, I just had a question, a follow-up question, if I can, that has nothing to do with poop on the gazebo, but it has more to do with where we are with the idea, because I know that we're treating the lake water, which we've actually been doing a good job of. You know, on occasion it gets there, but it's been really kept up on. But where we're at with the idea of the pulling the water from the rivers thing, has that been shelved?
No.
It has not been shelved.
That's
Okay.
a big, that's capital N, capital O. No, that has not been shelved.
Okay.
Because we're still open.
My turn.
Yeah.
Last one. Hurry up.
I'm sure. I'm kind of short.
Are you going to mention 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Please get to that.
We'll be wearing our shirts. Okay, I was assigned the bear-proof trash cans. Do we know where we are on that? Only because the trash cans that we were chaining up, the chains are now being cut and the trash cans are being taken, or they haven't been thrown in the lake for a while. I guess we're up on that one. So we're just wondering what's kind of going on with the bear-proof trash cans to make our life easier on that point.
You know what, we ought to have a discussion item on parks in general at our next meeting so that we can have active discussion on these things. We're just limited on how much we can respond.
Right.
We understand that, yeah. Well, we just hate to see the loss because the locks are not cheap. The chain is not cheap.
Understood. And tell us about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning, at the
Peninsula.
It's a little ribbon cutting ceremony. And
Peninsula now, which?
That is by, what's the Craig Leary's?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Craig Leary's, yeah.
Got it.
So-
Marvelous.
We expect you all there.
I'll be there.
Okay. Well, pretty far walk.
I will be at work, but I'll be there in
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
And Madam Clerk, if you make a note to have an agenda item on parks in general, that way we can talk about these things. Thank
All
you.
right, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
what about her? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And our last public comment will be from Julie Colson.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Julie Colson, and I'm bringing up how on 14th Street you turn left onto East Street.
That's a discussion. That's an active discussion item later on the agenda.
But I just had a quick question.
Okay.
I might leave, but anyway, we have 2 schools there, and that the students cross the street, and it's very dangerous. But I must say, in the last couple of days, the police have been there writing tickets. So actually, I wanted to say thank you.
Just a minute. You can come back every week. But that is an active discussion item next, later in the agenda. Thank you. And we're done there, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. We will now move to the consent calendar. I just want to make sure I'm not leaving something out. I'm not. We're at the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and are therefore approved by one motion unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. What is the will of the council?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
None. Okay, we move to the discussion and action calendar. As before, at first, all these matters will be acted on separately. If anybody wishes to comment, as before, a speaker's card from the clerk or raise your hand if online. If you have any documentation, send it to City Clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, 95901. Okay, the first matter is a discussion item. And we have Measure C survey discussion, and will be presented by the contact on this is, Jim, would you like to introduce Mr. Berry?
So as the item is described, we've done some polling regarding our Measure C implementation, and that has been performed through consultant William Berry Campaigns. And I'm going to turn it over to Bill to go through the presentation.
Great, thank you. As you know, the Measure C is expiring next in 2026. And so you have asked for research and to contact with community groups and community leaders to see what should you moving forward with Measure C. So we conducted a public opinion survey. We spoke with Jennifer. You want to put on? Oh, sorry. We spoke with 300 voters who are a demographic and geographic match of the city of Marysville by age, by nationality, by sex. We spoke with them between March 1st and 21st of 2024, both telephone and online. We had 300 participants with a margin there on each question of 5.8%. Go to the next slide, Jeff. One of the first questions that we asked them is, where do you get, what social apps and websites do you use regularly? Just try to get a sense of where they get their information and where they get their news. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Next slide. We asked the voters in general, do you approve or disapprove of the job City of Marysville is doing, providing services to its residents? 70% approve. I would say over the last 2 or 3 years, this is probably the highest approval rating for services and programs of any city that I've done in up and down California. And that's probably 25 or 30 cities. Next slide. 93% of voters approve of the firefighting, emergency preparedness, and rescue services provided by the Marysville Police Department, Fire Department, excuse me. Next slide. 81% approve of the public safety services provided by the Marysville Police Department, 81%. We asked voters to list objectives of the city of Marysville and indicate whether the objectives are important to them personally. Maintaining roads and streets at the top. Right below, we're preparing for emergencies, providing effective public safety, keeping taxes low. Next slide. Please indicate which of the objectives you are personally satisfied with. Providing effective public safety, 44%. Providing special events like festivals and community needs, 37%. I thought that was interesting. That is not usually a top objective that voters point out. Preparing for emergencies, communications about city issues. Next slide. 94% of voters agree that public safety should always be the city's top priority. 94%. Next slide. And then we talked to voters about renewing Measure C. And we asked, please indicate if you would vote yes or no on the following question. Shall the city of Marysville renew Measure C, a 1% sales tax, generating $3.9 million in annual revenue until ended by voters for general municipal purposes such as fire safety, police protection, and emergency services, traffic safety, street and road repair, park improvement, with citizens oversight and accountability measures. Shall the city, and annually the city shall publish a report of how much tax revenue was received and what that money was used for. So it was basically what they would see on the ballot if Measure C was up for renewal. And we took 72%, 71.71% of voters said yes, they would vote to renew. Next slide. 70% of voters, we then asked them, thanks to funding for Measure C, which is authorized by voters, after hearing about it, I want to make sure I have this question correct. The police matters, spending money on police matters was most important. Next slide. 72% of voters would vote for Measure C renewal after hearing that Measure C will allow the city to maintain its current level of police services. Maintain is an important word. Measure C will not raise tax rates. So Measure C is about maintaining and protecting what the city currently has, the programs and services it currently has. Next slide, please. 68% or more of voters are more likely to vote for the renewal after hearing that Measure C invests in growing the city's local economic recovery. Next slide. 72% are more likely to vote for the renewal after hearing that it is not a tax on their home or property. Next slide. 76% are more likely to vote for the renewal after hearing that it maintains current levels of fire and emergency medical services and is critical to the health and safety of Marysville residents. Okay. 76% are supportive of Measure C when they learn that all funds stay in Marysville. State can't take a penny. 75% are more supportive when they are supportive of Measure C's renewal when they are told that it will not raise tax rates. It simply maintains the current tax rate. And this one, we asked this question 2 different ways. We wanted to know about the duration of the tax measure, of Measure C, if it were to be renewed. And we asked it in one way for 10 years. And then the other way, we asked it until ended by voters. So if voters wanted to repeal the tax in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they have the ability to circulate a petition, gather signatures, and place for the repeal of Measure C on the ballot at any time. So 2 different ways to describe the duration of the tax. Next slide. Current tax for 10 years, so that's the second language that we used. And it received essentially the same level of support from voters. Next slide. 76 are more likely to vote for the renewal after hearing that it will maintain police and EMT response times, emergency response time. Next slide. 78% are more likely to vote for it when they are told that Measure C will have an oversight committee. Next slide is again reiterating the maintaining the current tax rate as opposed to raising. And then this is what we call the informed vote. We gave them some positives about the measure. We gave them some negatives about renewing Measure C. And then we asked them a second time, if the election were today and this was on the ballot, we read them the ballot language, how would you vote? And 74% said they would vote to renew Measure C. And then the demographic breakdown by gender and party preference. 39% were Republicans, 29% were Democrat, 21 no party preference. These were good voters, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 voters of the last 5 elections. 2/3 white, 20% Latino. 62% have lived in Marysville for more than 20 years. So my recommendation is, so polls are not predictors. Polls do not predict how things are going to happen in 3 months, 4 months, or 5 months. They're simply a snapshot of how voters feel today. Clearly, and it's represented throughout question after question, clearly they are satisfied with how this city is functioning right now. Now, homelessness, it was on another question that wasn't on my slide, was the top issue for voters. It was absolutely the top issue for voters, and they would like to see that addressed. But with that, they are satisfied with how the city is providing them services and programs. So then at this time, placing a Measure C renewal on the November 2024 ballot gives you a good opportunity to pass it and to get it renewed. With with the parameters of the size, the not raising the rate of what the programs will be used for, making sure that it adheres to the Taxpayer Protection Act in case that appears on the ballot alongside of it. My professional recommendation would be it has a good chance of passing, a great chance of passing if you place it on the campaign, place it on the ballot in November.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
First of all, that's 300, and I think the number of voters in the city is about 5,000, over 5,000 registered voters.
Correct.
So that's a substantial sample size, which gives you some confidence in that. We're looking into finding more real hard evidence on what we only have anecdotal evidence on, and that is the proportion of the tax paid by the residents of the city. Given the amount of business done along the state highway system, and most of that business is taxable, if not, I think it's substantially all is taxable. And then we have a couple of significant retail companies in town. I've spoken with the owners of both and asked them what percentage of their customers come from the city of Marysville. And they both said, oh, clearly less than half. And these are big sales tax generators. So again, there's anecdotal evidence that I think at the last one this was passed, that about half is paid by people from outside the city. And management is looking in to see if we can find hard numbers to support that. It's data I think would be useful.
Sure.
When voters are making up their mind.
Sure. Make sure that everybody pays their fair share.
Well, it's about where the burden falls too. Any comments or questions from the council? Noting none. Oh, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. Is there anyone here on the trash can location issue? Noting none, can we table that until next time? Thank you. And what that was about was where cans are stored in between collection days, and concerns that storage can be in less attractive positions than they should be, and trying to come up with something on that. But we'll talk about that another time. Okay. Mr. Krazo. Next item is item number 7 on the agenda, Public Works update to 14th Street traffic calming multimodal pilot project. And presented by Public Works Director Vincenzo Krazo. Sir.
Great. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Vincenzo Carrazza, Public Works Director. And I'm here to present the update to our 14th Street traffic calming multimodal pilot project. So I have 18 slides. Mr. Mayor, do you want me to recap the history of it or just skip right to the traffic calming elements?
History, and we're going to, the way we're going to work this, we're going to have the presentation, and then we want to have public feedback on this before the council can comment on it. I think that'll be very useful. So, Tenzo, any way you think is appropriate to give background, where the funds came from, what the purpose is. I believe it's a temporary project,
yes,
pilot project, and what have you. You can share that. I think it's important to know.
Okay, let's go to slide 2. So, as City Council had just had a special meeting before this meeting regarding the Caltrans litigation, you are all very familiar with our traffic issues within Marysville. And I'd like to begin the presentation with a quote from the Appeal Democrat. In the October 27, 2023 article titled, "It Divides the Community," Marysville leaders discuss city traffic woes, litigation with Caltrans. The Appeal Democrat writes in the highlighted, "Drivers along these highways will often use local side streets to mitigate any lights and other obstacles that may add another minute to their daily commute. Residents in the areas such as D Street, 14th Street, and other local routes downtown are heavily affected by these drivers that couldn't care less about the city's residents or their safety." So around that time, City Council heard the concerns of the citizens and directed staff to look into solutions for the cut-through traffic. So this slide, to demonstrate the ever-increasing traffic is coming in and out of Marysville, here's the Caltrans traffic census data showing changes over the last decade. So this is the official data from Caltrans that they have to submit to FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration. So this is their annual average daily traffic between 2013 and 2022. I just want to note that SR 70 to the north, where we just talked about the Benny Junction project, has risen 14%. To our south, it's risen 11%. And that's the absolute numbers. There's 62,000 AADTs. Think of that as like cars per day coming from our south. I just wanted to show the basically over the last 10 years, there's a lot of traffic being built up.
Those are all of those numbers arrivals.
Those are the number of vehicles that are annualized. They do a spot count. It's both directions.
Both directions. Thank you.
Through the point, yes. Okay, next slide, please. So piecing the data from several sources, this is the passenger vehicle count along the 14th Street area for the peak hour, or you just take some of those data. It's basically the highest 60 minutes.
And what's this showing? What are those numbers?
Sure.
That's blocking the Madam Clerk, your.
Oh,
thank you.
Are you using the PDF or the PowerPoint? Okay, there's some animations, but it's fine. So the yellow numbers are piecing from Caltrans, our AECOM general plan study on traffic counts, and also the Blue Zones project volunteering to do the traffic counts along the D, E, and H streets. So these are think about your highest peak hour, 60 minutes, morning commute, where there's just a lot of traffic on the road. So 1700 just north of 14th Street, 1250 just south of 14th Street on B. And then right by the Bryant Field, it's 890 and 810. So unless we pay a consultant massive amount of money, this is where I picked traffic counts from several different studies and sources. So the bottom part, which would be the animation now, is just to show the difference between the number of houses that live there versus the traffic. So on 8th Street, for example, there's 38 houses on 8th Street between 14th and 10th. But yeah, 250 cars go through there, in a 60-minute highest peak hour. Likewise, on G Street, there's 38 houses, 26 houses on F Street, 7 houses on E Street, and 27 houses on D Street. All right, slide 5, next slide. So why is there so much cut-through traffic? Let's take a look at the, next slide. Yeah, let's take a look at the traffic signals. In Marysville, there are 17 Caltrans or highway traffic signals and 6 city traffic signals. Those are the green that we have jurisdiction and control over. The red are Caltrans along the highway. So next slide. So if a motorist is coming into the city from the north, which is State Route 70 or B Street, they can shorten their trip by getting off the highway and cutting through the neighborhood. Example here is if you're coming from the north and you're going to Yuba City, you stay on the highway, you're going to see 10 traffic signals. But if you cut through, you're going to see 4 traffic signals using the 14th Street. If you're going to Linda, like to Costco from the north, if you stay on the highway, you'll see 13 traffic signals. If you cut through, you'll see 3 traffic signals. And that's using 14th and then south on D Street. Next slide. So likewise, coming into the city from the east, which is State Route 20 from Grass Valley and whatnot. So if you are going to Yuba City, you stay on the highway, you'll see 9 traffic signals. If you cut through on 14th, you'll see 5 traffic signals. Next slide. Okay, so we're zooming in on 14th Street. This is, you'll see the traffic flows essentially SR20 and SR50. They take 14th Street. You can cut through on D Street, E Street, F Street, G Street, and H Street. Next slide.
Pardon me, if you go back to that one. Because I've been observing this, the D Street traffic, most of that cut through traffic turns right on 9th. It does not, most of that traffic does not continue on D. Most of it turns right on 9th.
And then they use that to go to Yuba City?
Or to proceed south.
Sure.
To get back on, to go over to E Street to head south.
Okay.
Because there's a stop sign at every corner if you go down D, but if you catch the lights going down E, southbound on E is pretty quick.
Yes, if they're all green synchronized, yes, you can get through a lot faster.
The slow spot is between 14th and coming down to B and then over to E. That's where everything bogs down.
Okay. Right, next slide, slide 8. So this is the map that if you superimpose the zoning maps to it, you'll see the traffic flow. We look at the, I highlighted on the two areas. One is on the D Street area. If you're cutting through there, you'll essentially get through the R4 zoning. Those are your general apartment zonings. And then the cut through for F, G, and H, you go through R1 zoning, R2 zoning, which is your 2-family residence, R3 zoning, your neighborhood apartment, and then R4 general apartment zoning. So in other words, these are where people live, the residential zonings. Next slide. So then, which leaves E Street, and this is zoned M1 light industrial and C2 community business. So it seems that that's the logical route, is if you want to divert large amount of highway traffic, you would send them through businesses or industrial zones where there's less likely where people live. There's less likely to be people living there. So this is not a new idea of sending traffic through non-residential zones, through commercial industrial zones. Next slide. So just to show you, this is a Google Street View. They have a historical photo. I look at the earliest photo possible. This is in 2012. And you see that the city had actually at that time put up a sign that says, Yuba City traffic, make a left on E Street. If you're going through, that's where you go to the park. So you're on 14th Street looking at E. There's a sign there since 2012 that directs traffic down E Street. So the concept of sending the highway traffic down E Street isn't something new. Next slide, please. So yet we're in 2024 and highway traffic continues to cut through the residential areas. Next slide, please. All right. So this is that was a little bit of history of it. Now we're talking about what we're doing now. Is there any questions at this point or good? Okay. So talking to Mr. Tom Gavin, you remember last year he came to council and he talked about the traffic going to D Street. He's a resident that lives on D Street. And several years ago, I think he and his wife had gotten the neighborhood and they signed a petition that came to council to act on this cut through traffic. They were a little bit upset that their quality of life and all this highway traffic is going through them. And then the city council directed staff to find solutions. Last year, the city, with council's blessing, we applied for and was awarded the Mode Shift grant. That's for $168,000 from the Sacramento Council of Governments for a pilot study. The idea is that if we can divert traffic away from the residential areas, the 14th Street community could feel safe to walk and bike to the nearby park or the businesses along 10th Street. So the 14th Street traffic calming project includes a series of diversions and traffic calming elements. One is that temporary right-in, right-out conversion on D Street. That's the very right icon there. And then that was to prevent cut-through from using D Street. The second is a retiming of the traffic signal at 14th and E to favor the westbound left turn to send traffic down to the commercially zoned areas. And three is to install some mini roundabouts on F Street, G Street, and H Street to deter even further the cut-through traffic from entering the residential zones. And also we would install radar feedback signs to help drivers be aware of their speed relative to the speed limit. Next slide. So speaking specifically about the right-in, right-out conversion on D Street, we striped a triangular median to facilitate right turning. We closed the gap on 14th Street and added additional parallel double yellows to make it a barrier. Of course, we also installed the no left turn signs there as well. And also you saw that there's we added delineators to physically discourage those westbound left turn violators. Okay, next slide. So on 14th Street and E, what we did here is we switched the timing for the westbound left turn with the westbound through movement. So what we previously had for the straight movement, we just switched it to the left turn. So switch the two. So that's the yellow head, the signal head, and the yellow movement is the westbound left turn. The red is the westbound through and the signal head. So it's essentially if we gave 10 seconds to one, 5 seconds to the other, now we just swap it. And also we added some orange flags to draw attention to the sign that's been there since 2012 that Yuba City highway traffic needs to go left on E Street. Next slide. So with this, we will make the turn pocket longer by restriping the approach. So right now, the westbound left turn has a short pocket, and based on some community feedback, we want to make that longer. So some of the things is we'll grind out that pocket, make it longer, restripe the double yellow, and then also add a dash line so that the through lane is your auxiliary lane and the left turn is your primary lane. Okay, and next slide. Okay, so as mentioned before, we have additional work on F, G, and H streets. Thanks to the efforts of Councilor Belza, we acquired tractor tires last year. We're gonna test that out by having that right in the center, kind of reflective of our agricultural backgrounds. And we also ordered some rubber curbing around that to kind of, you see in the upper right here, is that we did a mock-up right in the courtyard of what a temporary, traffic mini roundabout would look like. So it is planned to be on 14th and G first. We want to put that in and kind of see how that goes. If people like mini roundabouts, we'll get 2 more, one at F Street and one at H Street. If, that's not a great thing, we could explore other traffic calming elements such as speed cushions or speed humps, those kinds of things, depending also the fire department's need for emergency response. So those can be, again, it's a pilot project and we can explore and see what's best for the city. And then one more slide is mentioned before, we have the radar feedback signs. We have ordered these. The foundations have been poured. This one on Bryant Field will be replacing the static 25 miles an hour sign. So when we have the dynamic radar feedback sign, it'll go in that location. Next slide.
And those collect data.
Oh, yes, they do. They'll give you the speed data.
And what will we do with that data?
That would be for maybe to share with police department. We can see the average, the highest and the lowest and the kind of range of people going through there. I don't particularly want to use those for our engineering studies because those would require us to actually respond to the 85th percentile. So those are.
I didn't hear what you said.
So I don't want to use those for actual engineering and traffic studies. When you hire an engineering firm to actually do a physical study, the law requires you to set your speed limit at your 85th percentile.
Well, but if you are in a residential area,
right,
it's 25 miles by law, right?
Yes. All right. So if the 85th percentile is 50 or 60.
The purpose would be to see where people are speeding.
Yes. So then we could share that info with the police department and mention, hey, we saw in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock, there's somebody doing 100 miles an hour. So we could enforce that, those areas.
Thank you.
Sure. And so timing wise, the construction notice, the door hangers that are right there. Public Works will continue working until July 31st, 2023. We had sent these door hangers out. Eric is here. And you mentioned that the last council meeting that the Blue Zones Project volunteered, and they went out to the entire surrounding residents and handed these out. I'll put them on the doors to notify the public that this work is continuing from, I think it was May to July 31st. Once Public Works is done with this construction, we have an assessment period of 6 months just to see how the traffic diversion and traffic calming works out. And if it's successful, if we do calm traffic and divert them out and people in the neighborhood feel safe, they can walk around, then it sets us up to ask for permanent installation grants. So think of that, rubber roundabout. And now we can go and get nice landscaped, hardscaped roundabouts if that's the way to go. We can also ask for some, landscaping for the medians. There's a lot of opportunities if the project is successful. So last slide. All right, with that, I'm available for questions or set for public comment.
If you'd remain available for questions, perhaps from people, if you want to speak on this, get a speaker's card here. Anyway, any public comment? Do we have? Yep. Pardon me. Ma'am, I have to just get a speaker's card. You'll be recognized in order. Madam Clerk, who's first, Madam Clerk?
Our first speaker will be Carrie Williams.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Hi, I'm Carrie Williams. I'm a newer-ish Marysville resident. I'm here to talk about what you were speaking about, that turn lane and such. I actually love it and hate it and love it and hate it all at the same time. I think it's great because my daughter actually goes to the preschool on that street. So I have actually been on that street where cars are whizzing by and, I actually live on 17th
On
Street.
which street is the preschool you said?
On D Street.
Okay.
So I actually live on 17th Street, which is actually a trucking lane, like the trucking route. And my house is literally right behind Marysville High School. So I live on a really, like an actual busy route that I know is designed to be a trucking route. So I know that my daughter has to be safe. So I've taught her to be safe. I've taught her, like, you can't run out in our yard in front. You can't, like, be out there without my attention. You can't be out there without me paying attention. But I like the fact that I went to get, like, put her in a, you know, like an after school program where it felt quiet and on the quiet street compared to where we live. You know, our backyard's great, but like you know, we live on a busy street. So it was nice thinking like, and then when I was going there, every once in a while there'd be like cars whizzing by, and like every once in a while I'd be like, why are these bigger things coming through? And you know, for me, like the idea of like putting in the brakes so that people aren't just coming and speeding down that road where, listen, my kid, I've trained her. I live in a busy place. So she's trained. But then I look at other parents who live on quiet roads, you know, with their kids who aren't or are younger or like aren't prepared. Like I've, you know, I'm like, you know, with my kid, but like they're not all like that. And it freaks me out. So like the idea that that is taking away that fear for mothers and fathers and parents of any make, shape, or form, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's great. And it makes my life harder because I have to go up to a light and go around the block and do extra. But you know what? I'd rather be extra than have a 3-year-old run on the road with someone not paying attention because they wanted to get out of Marysville faster. You know, like that is, it's not okay. So for me, the benefit outweighs my extra 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it might be. And I think that should be what most people think of, at least if you think of it in the balance of like a kid's life. So that's kind of why I came today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker will be Gay Galvin.
Welcome, Gay.
So this is usually my husband Tom's job, but he couldn't be here tonight, so it's me. We've loved the no left turn onto and off of D Street. It's made a huge difference. Like I hadn't seen a semi on our street since it was enacted, since they put the temporary barrier up. Unfortunately, they took it down today, and on my way here at D and 9th, there's a semi truck right next to me on D Street headed to 9th. So I mean, when I got to the intersection, there's been much less speeding, fewer cars. I've been able to cross the street to go to the park safely. Speaking of the park that we spoke about earlier, all the work you're doing on it, I don't think we want 3 sides of busy traffic surrounding Ellis Lake Park. I think that slowing things down and being able to park your car at the park from people coming from other places is important, not to have speeding cars going by. I think that the trucks have been wrecking D Street. My husband and I both walk a lot, and crossing through the furrows and the little tripping points on the street is actually not even safe. The trucks have kind of destroyed the street. And I hope our city council thinks that it's more important to preserve our neighborhoods in historic Marysville rather than keeping an unsanctioned bypass going, because that's what we've been. And it's not just D Street. I know on 14th Street when I walk, I see it that where they made the left light turn longer. I unfortunately see people standing, you know, several cars back in the straight lane so that they can continue on to F, G, and H. I don't see a lot of people turning left yet. So obviously you can't just work on D Street. More has to be done. But it's made a huge difference. I was so sad to see it go down today. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Carasso, for the work you did. And I hope that we keep making it get better like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay.
The chair.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what piece came down today?
Mrs. Galvin was talking about the vandals that they go in the middle of the night and they yank out our delineators, so that way you physically can make a left. We've had it since we started this project. But we've informed PD and we filed a police report. You can't vandalize traffic control devices, but the citizens are going vigilante on us.
Let's continue. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker will be Mark Brown.
Mr. Brown, good to see you.
See you. So my wife and I own the preschool on 12th and D. And I think initially, despite some mixed reviews, and by initially, I mean like the first day or two, I think our clients, the parents who are coming to do drop-offs and pickups, obviously the inability to turn left, maybe, you know, their normal path of travel had changed. And that was something that took them by surprise. Same thing, first time I drove there, the traffic deterrence up, I can't take a left. But there's no question that the response from our clients has been favorable after that, the realization that they're going to have to take a different path, maybe. It's also, we do pickups and drop-offs as well from the center to the local schools. And it adds a few minutes to our staff's pickups and drop-offs. But none of that, I wouldn't label any of that as an inconvenient. It's a trade-off for the decreased traffic that we're seeing already that's going past the center. I think with the cut-through traffic, if the goal is to decrease the amount of cars that are traveling down that section of you know, the northern section of D Street, it's decreased the traffic. The cut-through traffic is obvious. The cut-through traffic is much less likely to observe the speed limits. When they're trying to cut around, they're trying to save time, and they do it at an unsafe speed. Neighborhood traffic is much more likely to obey the speed limit. So not only have we seen a decrease in traffic, but we've seen safer speeds going down there. We've also seen a decrease in trucks. And we've had some incidents with trucks over the years with power poles and things being hit. So since we bought that property and developed it in 2018 and opened in 2019, we've had informal discussions and heard comments regarding possible stop signs and traffic lights and different measures to slow traffic down there. They added crosswalks, which was something that we appreciated. That was a good help to the center. There's no question that this has had an impact, and a positive one. You know, our main concern is, for one, I think D Street in general, Marysville is a mixed, you know, almost every street is mixed use. That section of D Street is unique because not only is there commercial and residential, there's so much pedestrian traffic with the park. There's so many people on bikes and walking that I think that needs to continue to be a focus of not only thinning out the traffic on there, decreasing the truck and commercial traffic, and slowing down the traffic as well. So no question, we have a pretty good pool of, you know, opinions because with our clients that are coming in doing drop-offs. So we, you know, a pretty good measure of how people are feeling about it. And it's now, after the initial, you know, changes to the people's, the way they travel, the way that we get to, the way that my wife gets them to work and back has changed, but there's no question it's been positive. And in general, I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't know if it would be better if it works in conjunction with a stop sign. I think, you know, the two combination may be, you know, ultimately the permanent solution that would really deter the cut through traffic. But in general, I just want to express my appreciation, because I appreciate creative solutions to complex problems in our city. And I realize that cut through traffic that just happens to affect our business does not solve the traffic issues in Marysville, particularly traffic, you know, coming through 70 and trying to get through town and continue on. It's just an ancillary factor to that. I realize that, but for those of us that live, work in that section, there's no question it was becoming a problem. Somebody and somehow collectively we took the initiative to address it, to try something. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying new ideas. If it doesn't work, it seemed it was pretty, and it's way more inexpensive than starting with something expensive like a traffic light. And I think it's netted positive results. So I applaud the effort, and I'd like to see it something. It would be nice to see if it's left permanently. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah,
very much. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker will be Chris McMullen.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Chris McMillan. I'm here with my wife, Kim. So we're here this evening to also express our support for the recent traffic calming measures that are currently being implemented. And we're encouraged by this pilot program. We really hope it'll prove successful, ultimately becoming a permanent solution. So I just want to thank you all for acknowledging the traffic problems that we indeed have on 14th Street and D through H streets. And then, of course, your efforts to take action and address them. And as concerned local residents here and homeowners living on one of these heavily trafficked streets, we experience firsthand the dangers and negative impacts of the high volume traffic. Vehicles use our street and others in the area as shortcuts to avoid highways, resulting in constant traffic at all hours of the day, especially during peak times. The situation poses significant safety risks, of course, and so, I mean, we also believe residents should be able to take walks, ride bicycles, have that peace of mind when their children walk to and from school, and crossing streets without fearing for their safety due to speeding vehicles. The posted 25-mile-per-hour speed limits and stop signs are really often ignored by drivers. Additionally, the noise from cars, trucks, pulling trailers, and motorcycles and other vehicles are extremely disruptive to all of our residents. These residential streets should not serve as extensions of the highways running through our city. And while some may complain about, these changes affecting their commutes and such, it's essential to consider the residents who live on these streets. The traffic congestion on highways 20 and 70 to us is a separate issue, and residents should not bear the brunt of any of these problems. Our safety and peace should take precedence over the inconvenience to through drivers. And finally, I do want to point out that we have already noticed, we've of course seen the improvements that have already taken place, and we've noticed them, and we've from the measures that have already been implemented so far. And we're encouraged by all this, and we're really looking forward to the additional planned steps. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker will be Carolyn Sasaki.
Hi, Carolyn.
Thank you for everything you've done so far for the neighborhood. I thank you for listening to the residents and trying to take measures to calm the traffic. And I just don't want to be redundant by saying I agree with what's been said so far tonight. I did just want to say I did notice the East Street traffic light change, because I sat through it a couple of times. And did notice that there were not a lot of left turns being made onto East Street. I did notice a truck and trailer come out of the forward lane and go into the left-hand turn lane. I went straight to my address on H Street, and he had cut through to get through H Street. So I think that's just something to be aware of, that even if we divert traffic down E Street, there may be people who continue to try to go down the numbered streets. So, but thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker will be Judy Mann.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Judy Mann.
where Ellis Lake is my backyard, and I'm very proud to say that. I live right on D Street, but most of you don't know I recently changed my residence to the end of 14th Street. I'm right on the corner of 14th and D. And since this pilot has come about, I want to share a little bit what I've noted in the last 2 weeks. 14th Street is massive traffic. It's like a highway now, which is good. They're using what it should be intended to use in my prospect. I don't drive, I walk all over, okay? So when I walk down D Street to get the bus on 14th Street, which is right there where all the traffic is zooming in, Yuba-Sutter transit bus stops right there. And I think about the passengers that are getting off or getting on or trying to walk to their home. So that's something I observed, and maybe it hasn't been noted. This last weekend, we had the first fish derby at the lake, and I noticed a lot of traffic, more so where people were not aware of what was going on. Since my window faces 14th Street, I saw so many U-turns. People did not want to go down, make a right turn. There were numerous of U-turns right in front of my residence. People going back down D Street towards downtown, or trying to find another avenue to get around. They did not want to go around the lake, obviously. Another thing I noticed was that, a good thing, the parents that let the kids off to go to school in the morning. There's a little preschool across the street from where I used to live, and I fear for the parents. I fear for the children that are getting transported to and from in the morning and in the afternoon. So these are just some of the things that I've observed as a walker and just watching. And believe me, every hour on the hour, I was watching the traffic as they were zooming down. And I've never seen so much traffic now on 14th Street. And to talk about D Street, I feel so much safer now walking down there. So that's just my comments that I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Our next speakers will be Ben Deal and Mike Farini.
Welcome, sir.
Okay. Hey, guys. Mike Farini.
Pull that up.
Okay. Mike Farini and Ben Deal. We recently started a little organization called the Yuba Area Bike Advocates, and you know, I know Ben's been pushing for a pedestrian advisory committee, a bike pedestrian advisory committee, and we also have some other members here from Yuba as well. So we're in full support of what's going on. I want to congratulate you guys, everybody here, on doing a great job, paying attention to the traffic problem and doing something about it, taking actionable items. Vincenzo, thank you for your attention to this. I really appreciate it. I know you don't hear much, but maybe you hear complaints, but I'm super proud of what you've been doing so far. So I just wanted to point out a couple things. We should be following, I hope we're following the NACTO guidance, because that's the best practice nationwide for cities, for traffic calming, and for all kinds of active transportation type of design. It's the best thing out there. And also, if you guys pay attention to SB 960, SB 960, it's the Complete Streets bill that's going through the traffic committee in the state right now, and it's actually getting ready to pass the committee and go to the floor. So it's going to happen, I think. And what it does is it allocates SHOP funding. So when there's a SHOP project in your city, because we have 2 state highways, so any project that's in the state, that's a SHOP project within your jurisdiction, they have to allocate at least 20% to active transportation facilities. So bike lanes, pedestrian, and so forth. So it's a really good bill. And if you get a chance to talk to your congressperson, you know, pitch that Senate bill, because we need that to pass for cities like us who don't have all the resources, right? Lastly, on 14th Street, I just want to say to Judy's comment and others too, that 14th Street really needs to be the one that's traffic calmed. The barriers are great. The barriers are perfect because that prevents the vehicles from going down the street in the first place. But 14th Street needs to be narrowed. It's an extremely wide street. It's hard to cross from one side to the other. Same with all the other residential streets. They're pretty wide. You know, they were designed a long time ago. So take out the paint buckets and put some bike lanes in there just to narrow it down, and put the bike lanes on the inside of the parking, not on the outside of the parking, street parking. Because when I'm riding on the outside of the parking, I'm more susceptible to getting hit. Protected parking, you can just use cars as a barrier, and it also has a narrowing effect. So if cars are coming down the street and they know that a vehicle that's not parked all the way to the curb is out here and it's got a door coming open, they're going to slow down. It's just a natural thing. The narrower the road, the slower people go. They don't have the same visible reference to speed to go faster. Like Vincenzo pointed out, the 85th percentile is higher than the actual speed limit, and that's because you have wide streets that are wide open. Hit the gas and you go. So everything you guys are doing so far, planning, love it. Thank you so much for your efforts, and I'll turn it over to Ben.
Good to see you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was here last week, obviously, for the bike pack. I actually work on F Street, and I walk between E, D, and F. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. People are speeding. You might want to consider doing some temporary curb extensions on E Street, maybe by the school. And then also what Mike kind of mentioned on 14th Street, if you're restriping 14th between E and D, make room for bikes. I actually ride it most mornings. I used to live on D between 13th and 14th. So I remember the speeding traffic. So I appreciate you guys and support it. That's it.
Thank you, Ben.
Our last speaker on this topic will be Eric Perez.
Welcome, sir.
Hey, good evening. Well, I think just similar to what others have said, really just share a lot of what has been said. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Eric Paredes. I'm with Blue Zones Project Yuba-Sutter. And, you know, we at Blue Zones, we're honored to have been able to partner with the city of Marysville on this project. You know, this last week, I spent a few days in Cincinnati at two urbanism conferences, and we spent the entire week talking about street safety, traffic calming, and, you know, Vincenzo, just want to commend the work that you're doing, because a lot of the really good ideas that we talked about in Cincinnati, Marysville is doing them. Marysville is really leading the way in addressing high traffic speeds and really just increasing residents' sense of security. So just want to commend the city for that. Like it's been said in Vincenzo's presentation, this is a pilot project. So I think there's opportunities to get creative. And what I love about the area of public policy is really just the opportunity for creativity. So just like what Mike said, there's a lot of different traffic calming measures that we can take. So definitely narrowing the roads are going to decrease traffic speeds. When we were out there talking to neighbors, leaving door hangers, we talked about the mini roundabouts, traffic circles, however you might want to call them. And some of the things that residents shared is, although we maybe don't like them, at the end of the day, they slow traffic speed. So what we do plan to do, you know, during this process is we let residents know we're not just educating and spreading awareness of the changes coming to your neighborhood, but we also want to come back after everything is implemented to get feedback, right? Because it might be, hey, maybe not just 14th, maybe the other streets as well. So just again, just so appreciative of being able to partner with the city of Marysville. And like I said, I think there's opportunities to make it even better. So, you know, any of the residents that are here, folks that spoke, happy to work together to just find ways to make it even better. So with that, just thank you so much for the opportunity to partner.
Thank you, Eric. Madam Clerk.
No further speakers, Mayor.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the council?
Sure. So as a proprietor of a business here, a lot of people come and speak their thoughts. And I just want to emphasize the fact that a lot of the initial thoughts about this change on D and 14th were negative from many people. But as soon as I point out to them that, A, they don't live there, and B, you know, there are complaints from people that do live there, they stop talking and then they acquiesce and go, good idea. So I want to share that and the fact that I do get some negative turn from people within the community, but I do believe that it is a step in the right direction with what we're doing here. And once they see the rationale to it, they most of the time change their minds. As a person that takes that route 14th to E Street often, when I'm hauling heavy trailers and so forth, I like the new change in timing on the Ellis Lake Drive intersection. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
To the chair.
Sure.
I would note a number of different conversations that I've had with folks in regards to this issue. One was with Mr. House, who's in the seats here with us tonight, and we had a long, robust conversation about how we came about this and some of the negative impacts that we're experiencing, you know, as far as backup going into B Street, et cetera. But really a key issue was the increased traffic that is putting on E Street and how it affects the school on E Street where Mr. House works. And so some dialogue with city manager and Chief Sachs, we increased patrol, especially during high traffic flow times on that street, which I think has been effective. And we're starting to see that getting a head nod. So I've also received a phone call from one of the owners of Lakeview Petroleum today. And we had a conversation about it. They've noticed some decrease and some complaints from customers as trying to get in and out of the card lock station right there on the corner of 14th and D. Once again, had a pretty robust conversation about all of the issues and the results of what we've been hearing tonight. But I told him I would make a comment, encourage them to be here, but they couldn't be here in order to speak for themselves. I've gotten quite a few comments about that, you know, we're stupid and this plan is stupid, but none of those folks are here to speak up for themselves tonight. So I would make one suggestion, I think, in the whole process of this is that I know we have the one sign at the corner of High and 14th, which has the directional arrow saying to go to Yuba City, but possibly it would behoove us to put a sign maybe at the corner of 14th and C, you know, near the corner of the ball field. That's much sooner to the signal so that people that are going that way know that get in the left turn lane to make that left turn onto East Street rather than waiting. You know, I go through there and I hit the green light and I beat everybody over the bridge to go to Yuba City. So maybe with a little bit sooner heads up on 14th Street, we might see a quicker response to that signal getting in that lane. So other than that, thank you. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Good Chair.
Please.
I just want to thank everybody for coming in and speaking and giving us their opinions. We know it was a pilot program. We knew it was going to take some getting used to, and we knew it was going to make some people unhappy. As Councilman Bells has said, none of them seem to show up to, they like to do it facelessly on Facebook, on social media to complain. So I am really proud to know that you guys were willing to come out and show us your feelings, especially you guys in the neighborhoods that actually live there. The other thing is, I know there has been some issue on the school on E Street. But I'd like to say that was always the original truck route. That school went in knowing that was a truck route. I do think there can, with patrol and maybe some crossing lights or something, could be some help there. But I think that would be something with a discussion with a school that they participate in, knowing that they put the school right in the middle of a commercial zone. And the fact that those kids are a little older than Browns' kids that they're speaking with. So something to look at, but I think something to hold the school a little responsible for also in participating with us. Thank you.
I have some comments and then I'll pass it to our city manager, Mr. Jim Shad. About 3 years ago, we initiated litigation with Caltrans over the Highway 70 project, particularly as related to, well, there's several issues. One of the issues is the fact that there will be induced demand for additional traffic, and we're already overburdened. I'm old enough. Before I moved on and wasn't living here, and I left in 76, came back 6 years ago. People would turn right on 14th and do a cut through, but the volume of traffic is dramatically different. And the population of Marysville has not changed. So I don't know where that volume of traffic is coming from. That's a question to ask. I don't know if the algorithms employed by Google and Apple for their route suggestions for people are defaulting or somehow going to those paths, and how we can counteract that. But we need to do something. And during the informal negotiations we've had with Caltrans, and we've just got a good ruling on the case we're in with them, but we're looking for some help from them in solving that lawsuit and otherwise to calm traffic. Absolutely need to calm traffic in that neighborhood in particular. D, E, F, G, and H. It's amazing how fast cars goes down those streets. I have a radar detector. I've sat in my vehicle on D Street. I've gone over to F and G and done the same thing. Cars are flying down those streets. And in fact, it was interesting, the judge in the Caltrans case at the hearing week before last, got it right? Yeah, week before last, he commented on immense amounts of traffic being dumped into the city by the state highway system. And they're coming into town going 65. Do they really slow down to 40, 35 or 40 when they're going on Highway 70, which is B Street? And then they're used to just flying, and they continue flying through the neighborhoods. And we've been living with that. I've been watching, I've been fearful with the Browns child care facility, which is across the street from me on D Street. I just hold my breath sometimes when I see parents loading or unloading their children, and I'll see a car coming flying down the street, and I just hold my breath until it's passed. And it's a cause of worry, and it's an improvement when we can address these things. What's interesting is that we are a crossroads, a substantial crossroads. Yuba-Sutter and Marysville both have the most significant state highway crossroads north of Sacramento all the way to the Oregon border in terms of volume and significance. If you go to Yuba-Sutter, and you go off on a collateral street near one of the state highways, you don't find people speeding because they're not taking a shortcut, because those are straight shots and you don't have these opportunities to sneak through the city and zoom to your next turn. And it's interesting. You get off of those collateral streets in Yuba City, everybody's going the speed limit. Completely different. So it's behavior driven by the environment, and the dominant environment is state highways, crisscrossing Marysville, and the difficulty in getting from one place to the other. We're trying to maximize safety and minimize inconvenience. Hopefully, we will move forward. Our people have been complimenting Vincenzo Carrazzo here. Vincenzo is very astute in this field. And Vincenzo accompanies me to transportation committee meetings at Caltrans. In fact, I think he picked up the idea for this grant at one of those meetings. And he's very entrepreneurial in that way. And so hopefully we'll have more experiments and we'll zero in on things that can really be effective, make life better in Marysville. It's just not West Marysville. East Marysville has the same problem. Ramirez Street, 18th, all those streets collateral to 20 and to 70, they have the same issues. And we're doing our best to address them. It's expensive to do all this traffic calming. We're looking for help from Caltrans when we hopefully settle our lawsuit, what have you. That's it for me. Mr. Chad.
I just gathering the information tonight and had some comments. I did want to revisit one of these slides, keep going, that Mr. Carrazzo put together, keep going. One with the numbers on it in yellow. There we are. Okay. So these numbers are very telling, and when I look at them, I see the problem in my mind originates right there at 14th and B. And so looking at those numbers, though they're not exact, I mean, based on the data collected, about 40% of the traffic coming down B is diverted onto 14th. That's phenomenal. Not in a good way, but phenomenal. So that the volume of traffic coming into town, particularly in peak hours, is such that people feel they need to divert onto 14th and find a quicker way around. That's where the problem originates. And that's just an example of one entrance into the city. While I truly like to collaborate with other agencies, this body and my priority is the residents of this community. So when we hear complaints of people who are passing through the community, they are a lower priority for me relative to the residents that live in the community. So I'm very happy with the efforts we are making. A former D3 Caltrans director once told me that we have complete control over our surface streets. And I took his word to heart, and we are now starting to exercise some of that control for our community. The E Street and 14th light is an example. That was making lemonade out of lemons. If you don't know the story behind that as of recent, that light was not able to be timed correctly because of its age. We had a truck that was going down a non-truck route, hit the sign or the traffic light, broke it, and our staff, our finance staff, and our police staff tracked that vehicle down, subrogated, and what do you know it? They paid for the company whose truck hit it, paid for a nice new street light, and that's why we were able to change the timing. So There will be more traffic calming measures to come, I'm sure. I received a heads up on a complaint from Ms. Coulson, who had been here earlier but left, and she was not happy about the traffic now being pushed down E Street, and particularly the speeding. So when we see that there's an undesirable effect based on our changes, that doesn't necessarily mean we give up. We try to address the new issue. And so this weekend, starting Monday, we had our police officers out there enforcing to see what was going on E Street. We also pulled information off of the radar feedback signs to see how bad the problem was. We're still analyzing that, and now we'll be able to react to that. So if we see an excessive amount of speeding because we've diverted the traffic down E, then we'll address that. So this is going to be a process. It's not going to be a silver bullet that fixes this problem. We will continue to work on it. We're going to be working on East Marysville and that 14th to 10th area. And then we will likely move over to 22nd with the grant we are receiving there and some of the ancillary streets over there. So I was very pleasantly surprised to see all of the folks that showed up tonight, and I really appreciate you coming and giving your feedback. If we don't do anything, we won't make any mistakes, but we will continue to move forward, and if we make mistakes, we will try and resolve them as we move forward.
If I may, we are ready to be bombed with criticism. This has been a welcome response.
So thank you folks for coming.
Ron, is that you back there? Did you want to talk about trash cans? We'll do that next meeting, okay? Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, we now move to the public hearing. Thank you. Give everybody a chance to move on. Yes. Really fresh fucking.
Yes. Yeah.
Oops.
Thank you. Yes. That was my.
We now move to a public hearing. The matter here will be addressed individually. If anyone wants to comment, speaker's card from the clerk, or if online, raise your hand. And you'll be recognized in order. If you have anything you want to share with the council, mail it to the city clerk at 526 C Street, Marysville 95901. And the matter public hearing is to amend chapter 2.76 Marysville Municipal Code entitled Purchases. Recommendation: pass a motion to 1, introduce the amended ordinance for first reading. 2, set June 4th, 2024 for the second reading and consideration for adoption. And 3, waive the first and second reading of the ordinance amending portions of chapter 2.76 of the Marysville City Code. Okay. Our contact on this is City Manager, Mr. Jim Sharon.
This change to the ordinance is really more a housekeeping effort than anything. As our council knows, we have had a lot more activity regarding projects to improve the city. And in dealing with that, we have had to procure a lot more items. we have had the procurement policy on our list of policies to update for quite some time. And finally, our finance director and city clerk and I have had enough headache that we dug into it and have updated it. The primary changes are related to clarifying the authority for procurement, and that authority may reside in directors or their designees for smaller items, the purchasing agent, which is our finance director, myself, or council. We put a nice table in the ordinance now that delineates who's authorized to do what based on dollar values, and that's segregated by purchases of goods and services versus public projects, because public projects have a few more strings attached to them or requirements when you're doing a public project. We've also tried to more clearly delineate the process used to procure things. For small items, as an example, we don't require significant amount of work. A person should be able to go out and buy a package of pencils without too much effort, but large ticket items, say the project repaving streets, would typically come to council. In addition, addition to that, we were lacking some items on alternative ways of purchasing. We have used the cooperative bid process, where we use somebody else's procurement process that was competitively performed, and we are able to buy off of that contract and not expend our own resources to bid out essentially the same thing that somebody already did for us. Similar to that, piggybacking onto an existing contract. And then we had no provision for sole sources or single sources in our code, which is pretty typical of most cities. There are some items that you just can't bid out because there's only one entity that makes it. It's unique, or it has a patent or something like that. So we added some language to that. And then last of all, some language regarding purchasing, utilizing grant funding, particularly federal grant funding, because there are some additional strings attached and some processes we have to follow based on procuring under a federal grant. So those were the major changes. Well, I missed one. The other, the limits of authorization and the limits for bidding at the various levels, whether we do, as an example, 3 quotes versus an informal bid, we raised those because they were fairly low for today's market. And so those are reflected in the changes. That is the meat of the changes, and we're hoping that council will approve the changes to that ordinance. That's all I had to say.
Okay, the process requires I bang the gavel and note the public hearing is now open. Madam Clerk.
No speakers on this item tonight, Mayor.
Public hearing now closed. Council, comments?
Question, clarification. Thank you. It was a good presentation there, Jim. I see section 14 that you were talking about the graph. Just from my reference, not that I'm wanting to digress, I see that you raised the ceiling on some of these in reference to the public purchases. You raised it to 60,000 before it goes to the council. What was it before?
Actually, the public projects, I believe the requirement was 75, wasn't it? Or 25.
It's quite a change. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So all of those went up significantly on the bid restriction or the bid requirements. If you notice on the authority for approval, though, we've kind of divided them into subsets because we felt that council, though we loosened up the requirements for the bidding itself, we still wanted those items to go to council at a lower dollar amount.
No, and again, I have no problem with it. I just was just kind of curious as what the change was, because the last time this was changed is 80s. Is that what I read? Yeah. All right, thank you. That makes a lot of difference. So last but not least, I mean, on your approval went to 25,000 or less. What was it before?
It was undefined.
Okay.
That was part of the problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have no issues or concerns with it, and I move to approve.
Any other questions or comments? Noting none, what's the will of the council?
Move to approve.
So motion?
Second.
And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Clerk, that was unanimous. Okay, we now move to committee reports and comments. I'm going to read down the list here. Councilman Belza.
I think the actual next item is a planning commission appointment.
Not on mine.
Have it on mine.
Well, you know what? It is on this other one, and I'll just believe you. Okay, we have a planning commission appointment.
My since taking my seat here, Eric Vodden has been my planning commissioner, and he has served the city faithfully and diligently. He's done a great job on the planning commission. Through some dialogue with him, he submitted a resignation letter earlier in the week, and all on good terms and standing. And so I spoke with Miss Cody Walker, who's in the galley tonight, and she accepted my request of her being on the planning commission to take Eric's place, and she submitted an application which turned in and approved. So I will be appointing her as my new planning commissioner, and tomorrow will be her first meeting. So there you have it.
Let it be done.
Yeah.
I remember my father, when I was a youngster, my father was on the planning commission. It was a lot of work. It's a real commitment, and thank you.
Cody's lived in the Marysville area her whole life, and alumni of Marysville High School, like a lot of us, and has a background in law enforcement and public safety. Should be a good addition to the planning commission.
Well, good for us. That's great. Apologize, that really was not on my copy of the agenda. Anyway, now we go to committee reports, comments. Councilman Bells, again.
Nothing to report as far as committees go, and would just like to thank Vincenzo. You are doing a great job. I appreciate everything that you're doing. And even though we're in some cases taking some heat on all this, it's worth it. And I think it's going to be a positive in the community. Thank you, staff, and everybody that's keeping the wheels moving. Thank you.
Councilman Gilchrist.
No comment this evening.
Really quiet today. Everything okay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Councilman Hudson.
I got no committee reports. Just want to say thank you for all the work from staff, what's going in, and Jennifer, that's a lot of work on the finance. So thank you for your time put into it and what you also presented, Vincenzo. That was good. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor.
The only committee report is RWMA. We are doing the search for the new director. We're in the process of putting together some different headhunters, lack of a better term, to do something for us, and we're trying to expedite it the best we can. So obviously it depends on what kind of candidates we get. So other than that committee, I don't have anything. Vincenzo, nice job. Jennifer, great job on the presentations. I wish the crowd was here again. I'd like to thank him again because I think we were all expecting a barrage of bullets. And it's really, in this particular job, it's really nice when the supporters come out and give us positives. So that was great to hear from everybody.
Thank you. Oh, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. And I just want to congratulate our city manager on a new son-in-law, right? Have I got that right? New son-in-law that just came into his family.
And there were negative comments about the traffic calming. And we see those on social media. Social media can be polarizing by its nature. Albeit, but it's important we're paying attention to the criticisms as well as the applause for what we're doing on traffic calming. I want to comment on the lake. Early on, as the weather changed, the lake started becoming concerning, and management has taken a proactive response to that. The early plan was to do certain treatments on certain schedules, more and frequent across the board. And the lake, given the temperature and everything, so far, knock on wood, so good. It has a much better appearance. We have to remember that lake, as it sits right now during the summertime, when we're not getting rains flowing water through it, is a stagnant pond that we pump water into out of a well. And we have to manage the collection of problems that brings, be it plants coming up from the bottom or growing in the water. It's a real tough job. We're working it real hard. We're in constant, particularly management is in constant contact with our friends at the water agency, and seems to be positive outlook at the water agency, and a good relationship between the city and the water agency as we look for very long-term solutions, perhaps Yuba River water, and certainly on bringing that park back to life with broader walkways, and a lot going on. And we have city management, particularly Jim Shedd. He has great relationships with these folks. He's a great leader, and we're fortunate to have all part of, we're talking about Measure C was mentioned. Without a Measure C, we don't get great management in the city. We'll be talking more about that as we proceed. Madam Clerk, any council correspondence?
Not for this meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Manager.
I have a couple. All right, turn it over. First of all, A Street, paving construction should be rising next. A Street, 4th and 6th. Is that right? Yeah.
The gravel pit.
Yes. I did want to commend one of our staff, Wayne Turk, fire mechanic, has received 3. Sorry. I'll start over with Wayne. Wayne Turk, our fire mechanic, received his EVT3, which is, I'm pretty sure, Emergency Vehicle Technician 3. It's the highest certification you can get for maintaining fire apparatus through the state. Wayne took 9 tests within the last couple of months and passed them all. If you don't know Wayne, he's a very bright mechanic. We're very lucky to have him. He also has his certs in heavy equipment, or heavy trucks, and I think automotive as well. So if you see Wayne, congratulate him on that. I know Kyle, our Chief Hegstrom, was very supportive of Wayne getting those certifications, and that allows him to do even additional work on not only our equipment, but we're also servicing some Linde equipment and Yuba City College equipment. Those are the two things I had. Dan has a long list. He didn't take much time when he got back to develop a big long list of things that are happening around town. So I'll let him do that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So actually, I'll keep it short, Mr. Mayor. Don't worry. So just a reminder on the ribbon cutting, we'd love to have everybody join us. That's tomorrow at Ellis Lake at 9 a.m. So please join us. Hopefully, Robert, you can make it as well tomorrow. And then we have the Drakes opening game at Bryant Field tomorrow at 6:30. We saw the Drakes tonight, and they're looking forward to the first pitch, Mr. Mayor. So good luck on the practice tomorrow night. We'll see how that goes. I'm not going to be there for the opening, but it would be great if the city council can go join the mayor on the line for the photo of the opening night. If you guys are available to do so, that'd be great. And then we have a planning commission meeting tomorrow night with a full general plan update. So that'll happen tomorrow evening, same time as the Drakes game. So it starts at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we have Thursdays on Third as usual, but this time we have the community bike cruise, which we're working with Blue Zones, and Vincenzo helped work closely with them as well to have this bike cruise, which we expect a really high participation rate in downtown. So that starts at 4 p.m. on Thursday. And then we have I'm just going to go to June 14th. Okay. So June 1st, we have the C Street Music Festival. We're going to shut down C Street. It's a big music festival. It goes from noon to 10 o'clock. So we want to make sure to have that on your calendars. It's supposed to be a pretty fun night. And then on the 6th, we have a ribbon cutting for Casa Carlos, or 6/14 or June 14th at 2:30 Casa Carlos ribbon cutting. I'll remind you of these in the next meeting, but that's as far as I'm going to go, except for two other quick announcements on development. One is the Delta building. They finished some of their tear, or all of their tear out, I should say, and they're going to start construction by the end of this week, beginning of next week. Their contractor is ready to go. All our plans are approved, and they're moving forward. And then the other item I'll mention is that we received an offer that looks really strong on the RDA property located, what the property we call the community garden, the C Street property. We'll be making a decision on a developer, hopefully the first week when we set up a committee with the city manager. And we'll be setting up, we'll make a decision on whether or not we move forward with the development agreement for that property.
And will each of those events be announced on our city's website, on Facebook? Good. Wonderful.
Yes.
Good to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be back.
I want to see the pictures.
Oh, I'll show them to you.
Awesome. I think that's it. Next meeting, Tuesday, June 4th, 6 p.m. Adjourned.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
In the heart of Yuba County's wine country lies a quiet estate, surrounded by tall pines, a lake with waterfowl and fish, and room to get married. Share your vows with your family and friends in a special place, in a memorable way.
It turned out to be everything I thought it would be and more.
Frenchtown Inn, just 38 minutes from Marysville, a world away from the usual.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba-Sutter and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba-Sutter and Nevada counties.